sex offender Philip Garrido and his wife. For 18 years, abused and trapped in a maze of shacks and tents.
How did you stay sane?
You just do what you have to do to survive.
2 times, she will give birth to his child in the backyard. And over again, she could have been saved. 60 times, parole officers come to the house and see nothing.
Right now, I'm searching the house.
I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do.
I know it.
And all that time, for 18 years, a mother struggling to keep her hope alive.
I remember looking up at the moon, and then I said, okay, Jace, where are you? Where the hell are you?
And coming up now, 2 women, the campus cops, who will finally do what a bureaucracy never did. Save Jaycee Dugard.
We knew that he was way out there.
They weren't giving me any kind of sign that they were in trouble, but yet I felt that they were.
After all those years, a reunion.
And I remember
you shouting.
oh yeah.
And Jaycee Dugard's life today. What does she see when she looks at her daughters?
They're so resilient and they're beautiful and loving.
And what she teaches us about laughter and living in hope every single day. And from that little list she made once in her backyard prison, a dream fulfilled as she soars toward the sky.
Welcome back to part 2 of a special edition of 2020 on ID. I'm John Quinones. As we pick up the story, Jaycee Dugard has been held prisoner by convicted sex offender Philip Garrido for 18 years. And during her ordeal, parole officers have visited Garrido dozens of times, yet they have not discovered Jaycee and her daughters, even though neighbors had reported 2 girls living on the property. But as Diane Sawyer tells us, if the authorities charged with monitoring him hadn't been curious about those girls, Garrido was about to encounter 2 other officers who were. And in August 2009, those 2 women were about to change Jaycee Dugard's life.
At UC Berkeley, Philip Garrido is posting flyers about his wild religious beliefs all around the campus. With him, 2 young women who seem withdrawn, not happy. And after 18 years of law enforcement carelessness, ineptitude, and inertia, it would be 2 campus police officers, Lisa Campbell and Allie Jacobs, who say they simply didn't like what they saw.
One of the main things with me was the concern for the girls from a mother's standpoint. They weren't giving me any kind of sign that they were in trouble, but yet I felt that they were.
We knew that he was way out there, but we just didn't know what. We had no way of envisioning that it would be as big as it was.
The 2 women decide to act. They're not simply going to walk away. They engage Garrido in conversation, pretending to be interested in his delusional rants, and as soon as they can, run to check who he is and discover in horror he is a sex offender.
And I'm thinking, he's on parole, he's huge, and he's got this record, this violent record. This is not going to be good.
And because of mother's instinct, female intuition, and cops just plain doing their job, a young girl's world is about to change.
Just how incredible it is that they spoke up about something they thought was wrong. Even if they would have been wrong, they still spoke up. And they saved us. Something I couldn't do for myself.
By this time, August 2009, Jaycee Dugard had long since stopped looking at the moon as she used to do with her mother. It was just too painful. But mysteriously, this night,
for some reason, I looked up and the moon was just bright and beautiful.
And a few hours away, someone who was also grown 18 years older. 18 years of searching, suffering, struggling to hold on to hope. Jaycee Dugard's mother also looks up.
I remember looking up at the moon, and then I said, okay, Jace, where are you? Where the hell are you?
And all because of those 2 campus cops. On August 26, 2009, parole officers finally summoned Philip Garrido to come in. His family comes with him. Authorities start questioning the terrified woman in their office. But there's a problem. She is still locked in, sticking to the story he trained her to say, saying he's her protector, that she's there by choice. And her name, she insists, is Alyssa. Still, the little girl who last saw her name in Eclipse's journal, only to have it torn out. She has never said it out loud in 18 years.
I couldn't say it.
And only when a kind police officer takes her aside and asks her once more, "Who are you? What is your name?" Here from her book is what happens next. She asked for my name again. I said I couldn't say it.
I said, I'm not trying to be difficult. I haven't said it in such a long time.
I told her I would write it down, and that's what I did. You are looking at the piece of paper on which Jaycee Dugard, shakily, finally, wrote the letters of her name. Jaycee Lee Dugard. It was, she says, like breaking an evil spell.
Your name.
My name. And it was like a piece of me came back.
And the flame that had been extinguished immediately reignites.
You turn it back on and you can see things that you didn't see, that they were there, but you don't know they're there. And suddenly they are. They're like, you can see your mom, and I'm like, I can see my mom? It was like a question to them, you know, I can?
You're at the office, the phone rings.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And then they put her on the phone, and that's when I believed them. Running down the hall screaming, my baby's home. She's back.
I remember you shouting,
Oh, yeah.
found her! And I was crying, you know, when you're crying and you can't speak. I just said, come quick. I remember saying, come quick.
And I remember telling you, I'm coming, baby, I'm coming.
And the first moment they are both in the same room,
I knew it was her the minute I saw her, and all I wanted to do was hug you and hold you and never let you go.
when night falls, they're in a motel, but no one can sleep.
I woke the girls up and I just said, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm like, I can't wait anymore. I don't care if they're sleeping. And so I ran down the hall. I forgot the motel key. So I locked myself out of the room. The girls are following me, and I walked in. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
And stunningly, she insists life is too short for a moment of bitterness or rage. The last time she saw Garrido was at that parole office. He first winked at her, and later, with dead eyes, said, get a lawyer.
I don't feel like I have this rage inside of me that's building.
Why not? How can you not?
I refuse to let him have that. He can't have me.
You mean if you felt rage, it would mean he had...
One.
And do you remember the journal Jaycee Dugard kept in that backyard prison? And in it, that list of impossible dreams? First on the list was see her mom. But right there, it was to fly free.
Open the door.
When we come back, the outrage. 60 times police could have found Jaycee Dugard and did not. What has changed?
Few people had heard of Philip Garrido before Jaycee Dugard was rescued, but he was known to law enforcement authorities charged with monitoring his parole, even as Jaycee was being held captive. So how have they missed her over all those years? In 2011, Chris Cuomo set out to find answers.
Philip and Nancy Garrido are preparing to make a home movie. Look at where they are. Behind them is a playground. The Garridos are there to get shots of young children to feed Philip Garrido's sick appetites.
You got me real good?
Yes, I can see you really good.
This is going on despite the fact that Philip Garrido is supposedly under the watchful eye of federal parole officers for his history of sexual violence. Our investigation reveals that this is a metaphor for decades of neglect by state and federal parole officials, basically allowing Philip Garrido to do as he pleased, including taking Jaycee Dugard prisoner. Pain felt most sharply by the one person who never lost sight of the situation, Jaycee's mom.
How could anybody with a heart or a conscience or a soul, for that matter, take an innocent child away from its mother?
This is the first time Terry Probin's searing words have been heard outside court. The pain and outrage she spoke directly to the Garridos.
But my battle against abduction has just begun, and I plan to win.
A mother who demands change.
I'm appalled. I'm disgusted, and something needs to change.
How much of the outrage goes to fixing this situation?
I think that's what it is. I think that's what fuels the fire, the outrage that I have, the anger that I have.
Garrido's terrifying career of sexual crimes begins in April 1972. Vietnam is raging. Students are protesting at UC Berkeley. And just 40 miles away in the small town of Antioch, 21-year-old Philip Garrido is waging a war of his own against young women, charged with drugging a 14-year-old girl and repeatedly raping her. The case is dropped after the victim refuses to testify, leaving Garrido free to strike again, and he does.
I just started screaming, oh my God, that's him, that's the guy who kidnapped me.
News of Garrido's 2009 arrest brought back a flood of dark memories for Katie Calloway Hall. In November of 1976, Katie, then 25 years old, made the terrible mistake of giving a lift to Garrido outside South Lake Tahoe, California.
What I saw was a very tall, slender, normal-looking white male. He didn't look like what I thought a rapist would look like, obviously.
She was horribly wrong. Garrido hogtied and handcuffed Katie and drove her over 60 miles to Reno, Nevada, to a shed at this storage facility, where she says he repeatedly raped her over an 8-hour period.
He had just kind of a faraway look in his eyes. He looked at me like I was an object.
Miraculously, Katie was saved when a police officer on patrol happened to notice a broken lock on the shed and went inside to investigate. Garrido was soon sentenced to 50 years in federal prison for kidnapping and 5 years to life in Nevada for rape. Then came the first in a line of system failures. After serving just 11 of his 50-year sentence, Garrido is released after 2 parole examiners interview him for reportedly just 35 minutes. But Garrido wasn't a free man yet. He must serve his rape sentence in Nevada. But just 8 months later, a second failure. A Nevada parole board also decides to let Garrido out of prison. The reason? Not contributing to be a menace to the health, safety, and morals of society. These bizarre decisions were made decades ago. Our phone calls lead to dead ends or refusals to comment. So we followed the trail to State Prison Warden Brenda Burns, who signed off on Garrido's release. We found her in retirement, watering her lawn, and with little interest in the dreadful mistakes of the past.
We want to know why you released Philip Garrido so early from prison.
What the parole board does, they're the ones that release him, or their sentence term is finished, and that's what the situation is.
Were you surprised when you heard that he kidnapped Jaycee Dugard?
You know, I'm never surprised with the human nature, okay?
August 1988, Garrido walks out of prison a free man, but he's now supposedly under intense federal supervision as a high-risk offender. Parole is supposed to be release conditioned on regular check-ins at home and the parole office. In May of 1991, just 1 month before Garrido kidnapped Jaycee Dugard, federal officials actually toured his house in Antioch, discovering the hidden backyard with structures like this, eerily similar to the shed where he raped Katie, yet no alarms went off. Over the next 11 years, there would be numerous visits to Garrido's home, and according to his parole file, officers were often disturbed by his behavior. One wrote, he displayed an attitude of complete compliance that did not seem honest. It was almost as if he was putting on an act. Another wrote, need to keep close watch. Potential danger to the community is high. But despite these concerns, parole officers remain oblivious to the fact that Jaycee and her 2 daughters are living in Garrido's backyard in that same shed. To the former Inspector General of California who investigated what went wrong with Garrido's parole, this is outrageous.
A federal parole agent had not only been in the backyard, but had been inside what Garrido was calling a soundstage or a soundproof room for recording. So they knew it was there, so the federal government knew.
Then, in March 1999, another major failure. After just 11 years of supervision, federal probation officials again give Garrido a huge break, cutting short his parole for, of all things, good behavior. In this letter, senior U.S. probation officer Mark Mesner thanks Garrido for his cooperation over this period of supervision and hopes that he will continue to do well. Mr. Mesner? We pay Mesner a visit to find out why Garrido's federal supervision was cut short, given his violent and unstable background.
Mr. Mesner, we just want to ask you a question.
Mesner drives off without answering our questions, but there's no way to avoid the serious concerns raised about his office's botched handling of Garrido. A confidential federal investigation into the Garrido case concluded Garrido's federal probation office did not follow commonly accepted supervision practices and had failed to adequately supervise Philip Garrido. Perhaps most chilling is this. One may fairly question whether Garrido could have been deterred from the horrendous acts attributed to him had his federal supervision been conducted properly. The big question is, what lessons have been learned from the Garrido case? We sent letters to the head of the U.S. Parole Commission, the U.S. Attorney General, the Congressional Judiciary Committee, all asking what steps have been taken to prevent a similar tragedy in the future. The only one to respond was Representative Lamar Smith, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, who fired off a letter to the people in charge of probation demanding to know how they'll stop predators like Garrido from continuing their criminal behavior while going undetected by federal probation officers.
They call you?
No.
They say sorry?
No.
They say we figured it out, doing it differently next time.
No, but I need change and I need something to be different.
To trained law enforcement officers, it should have been evident that something was going on out behind the house.
David Shaw, the former California Inspector General, prepared a scathing 115-page report detailing a litany of failures by state parole officials. Top of the list, all the visits with Garrido by officials. Each yellow box marks a visit to Garrido's house, each one a missed opportunity. Parole officials never interviewed Garrido's neighbors, who had often spotted Jaycee and her 2 daughters. Agents also never questioned why there was a network of utility wires connecting the house to the backyard complex. Garrido was fitted for a GPS device in April 2008, tracking all movements. Each red dot marks his location and time. Look at how much time he was spending in the part of the backyard they never searched. Worst of all, says Shaw, Garrido often explained away reports and sightings of the children in his home by saying they were his brother's children.
We called his brother and spoke to his brother, and the brother didn't have any children.
But one phone call, hello brother of crazy Philip Garrido, do you have kids? No? Thank you very much, have a good day. Hang up the phone, go and arrest Philip Garrido and find out where the kids are.
Right. We thought that an agent could have dug just a little bit deeper and found out that those weren't his brother's children, and if not, then who do they belong to?
November 2006, perhaps the most egregious failure of all. A neighbor calls 911 and complains children are living in tents in Garrido's backyard. The caller also describes Garrido as psychotic with a sexual addiction. This time, it's not parole officers, but a sheriff's deputy who shows up at Garrido's house. But after a brief chat, the deputy turns and leaves, never even bothering to check out the backyard, despite the neighbor's complaint. In no small irony, the officers who helped capture Philip Garrido had nothing to do with his probation. Remember, it was 2 suspicious UC Berkeley campus officers who checked up on Garrido after seeing him with his 2 daughters. And that led to his arrest and Jaycee's rescue.
All of the forces that came together worked together for the good, and the result was that we found Jaycee 18 years later.
Most importantly on that day was a curiosity that was uncommon in the case of Philip Garrido.
I think that it comes down to, having that woman's intuition, mother's intuition, work experience, life experience, being in the right place at the right time and having all those things is what, made this a happy ending.
The former Inspector General's report painted an abject failure that demanded major reform in California's parole system. In the wake of the Dugard case, California says changes have been made in line with Shaw's report, such as criminal background information being available to all law enforcement, and specific training for how to check thoroughly on all sex offenders. The state also paid $20 million to the Dugard family to settle a claim that it had failed to properly supervise Garrido. But money is not what the Dugards want.
What matters more? What can't you put a price on?
The 18 years that I lost with her, the crap she went through, nobody can put a price on that. It's not good enough that the Garridos are behind bars and will never see the light of day again. It's not good enough to tell me that change is coming. The battle's just begun.
We know of no other child held in captivity as long as Jaycee Lee Dugard. But every year in America, dozens of children are taken by strangers. And Jaycee wants to remind us that anyone has the power to save a young life. Once again, Diane Sawyer.
Some of the children from a kind of survivors club of horror and hope. Some able to escape right away on their own, like 7-year-old Erica Pratt, abducted, her feet and hands bound with duct tape. But in the first 24 hours, she's able to chew through the tape, smash a window, and scream until a neighbor hears her. Stephen Stainer was held captive for 7 years when he finally decided to make a break for freedom. In the dead of night, reunited with his parents. He ran off in order to save another child, newly taken captive, little 5-year-old Timmy White. And of course, there's the story we all saw in the movies, drawing from a real-life case. A mother trains her son to play dead. She rolls him up in a carpet.
Roll, Jack! Roll! Come on, roll!
She sends him out to get help. The actress in the movie Room won the Academy Award.
Did you see Room?
I read the book. I haven't seen the movie. I heard that people are thinking it's close to my story, but I mean, reading the book, I didn't get that feeling at all. It's very different than what I went through, and you can't really speculate until you've lived it.
In her case, a child in those handcuffs, bolted into a soundproof shed. Like the women in Cleveland, who were also sometimes held in chains before their escape after 10 years.
Help me, I'm Amanda Berry.
And what about the young woman in the first famous case in America, the heiress Patty Hearst, who tried to explain how fear can keep you from running?
Why didn't I leave? All I can answer is that I just couldn't. I just plain couldn't.
In 1974, it looked as if Hearst was supporting her captors in a string of bank robberies, but she reminds everyone she had been raped and held in a closet.
After everything they'd done to me, I felt so afraid, and my thinking was so twisted that I really believed that I could not go and turn myself in without being killed.
And after years as a captive, Jaycee Dugard was also allowed to move around the Garridos' home.
There was no leaving. I was 11 when I was taken, and then all the rape and torture, and it really debilitates you, it makes you immobile and you freeze.
She says for a child, this is not ordinary fear. This is unfathomable terror. When she speaks to professional groups, she explains by using an unexpected lesson from animals in the wild. In this scene, you see a cheetah in pursuit of an impala.
The cheetah overpowers the impala, and it looks like it's taking it down.
Watch what happens when another animal moves in and startles the cheetah. That impala leaps up and runs, fully alive.
That prey that you think is totally dead jumps up and runs away. You know, that's kind of like what I did. You know, I had to play dead and play that I was, you know, like this docile person, and you know, I jumped up and here I am. I'm alive.
Jaycee Dugard wants to remind every one of us we too could startle a predator and save a child. A child like Elizabeth Smart, who was walking outside with her captors but was too terrified to call out for help. She'd been captive 9 months when strangers passing by recognized her captor and made a call.
I turned around, went back to my husband. I said, "That's him. Let me have your cell phone."
And what about this waitress working the overnight shift when she saw a man, a customer, with a young girl? She thought that girl looked like 8-year-old captive Shasta Groney. So she gained time with the man, the abductor, by slowly listing every single dessert on the menu for the child.
No child in their right mind would ever turn down a dessert.
While she was doing it, her boss was calling police.
This is Linda, the manager at Denny's. Yeah. I've got a little girl here with a tall gentleman, and she looks so much like that Shasta.
There are thousands of missing children who could be waiting for a stranger to notice something and help set them free. After her rescue, the state of California gave Jaycee Dugard $20 million, and there was a scathing report by the Inspector General, concluding there was chilling incompetence by police. When we ask what has changed today, we received an email saying California now monitors sex offenders more closely.
We have Amber Alert now. We have stronger laws.
Robert Lowry, vice president of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, says more children are rescued today. He credits new technology.
We have technology today that didn't exist when Jaycee was taken. With the amount of cameras that we have today, we'd have gotten a good picture of his car, and we're going to have a good chance of getting his license plate.
Is that car look familiar to you?
But all those years ago, Terry Probin, Jaycee's mother, she never gave up hope.
This pretty, young, innocent child, and it's time that she comes home.
Pleading with police to keep searching. She even kept Jaycee's little bedroom frozen in time, hoping for the day she'd return.
Even though she's not here, she's still in my heart.
5 years ago, when Jaycee's mother talked to me after the rescue, she said she was having trouble fighting the rage.
I think I have enough hate in my heart for the both of us. I hate that he took her life away. He ripped out a piece of my heart.
That was Terry Probin then, Terry Probin today. She says she is still fighting her anger at the Garridos and the carelessness of the police.
It does eat at me still to this day, and I know I have to channel that anger into something good, because it will eat me alive if I let it.
Still that terror when Jaycee's out of sight.
The thoughts flood. Is she going to come back? Am I ever going to see her again? And then I'll hear her, scuttling around in the kitchen, and I'll think, oh, it's okay. She's here, she's home.
Are you surprised that in some ways it's harder on you 5 years later than it is on her?
I wish it wasn't. I don't want to carry this any longer.
She says she is trying to move forward, learning from her daughter, who says that rage is also a kind of invisible prison.
I didn't want to give one more minute to Philip and Nancy. I mean, they took 18 years of my life.
Has he tried to contact you now?
Philip? No, not that I know of.
So he got 431 years. She got 36 years. Does that seem enough?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I mean, I would like to see them in jail for the rest of their lives. I don't really believe in the death penalty. It's hard knowing that you're paying, being like a taxpayer now, knowing that you're paying for his meals 3 times a day, and that's a little hard to swallow.
So I wonder, have you seen what it looks like today in the backyard?
No, I haven't.
This is it.
Wow, they just bulldozed. Looks like somebody else lives there now. Wow.
But it's gone.
Yeah.
It's dirt.
No, that's a good thing.
And maybe a haunted history.
Yeah.
When we come back, how you recover from 18 years of terror as a captive. And what Jaycee says about her daughters today.
Do you worry at some point they'll want to see him?
Years into her ordeal, Jaycee Lee Dugard has an idea. Clinging to hope, she planted a flower in the prison backyard and set up a little school to teach her daughters everything she knew.
From the 5th grade.
Yeah, that's my limited education.
Today, her 2 babies are attending college, something she didn't dare to dream when they were captive in that backyard.
They're so resilient and they're beautiful and loving.
She's protecting their privacy. Some of their friends don't even know their history. And if you met them, you'd be stunned by their vibrance, their curiosity, and independence.
She's like, I'm going to accomplish something in my life.
She says she wasn't going to let her fear limit her children's lives.
Do we scare our kids into never wanting to do anything? Or do we prepare them for the worst in life, never knowing if, if it's really going to happen?
She also made sure they talk freely about the twisted life in the backyard and what really happened.
They saw his craziness and ups and downs and knew how unpredictable he was.
Do you still call him their dad, which you did 5 years ago?
When I refer to him, no. I think I've been calling him Philip lately, actually. Mm-hmm. When we do talk about him.
Do they ask you more questions about why you didn't take them and leave?
No, actually, they don't. They know our circumstances. They know that's not even a question for them and never has been.
And amazingly, the 3 of them have learned to find some laughter in that deranged, distorted time.
To know it was okay to laugh about Philip and Nancy and their craziness, it helps.
It helps tame it.
Rebecca really taught me to laugh, that it's okay to laugh.
When she says, I sit with my girls and we laugh at what we went through. And I think everybody thinks it's just going to be, it's a wake, an eternal wake for 18 years of your life. But she says, we laugh.
That's really the secret. It doesn't mean you can't be sad and you can't cry and you can't have hurts, but you've also got to be able to let go.
It's a lesson Jaycee Dugard brings to the Jace Foundation, which she created to help other victims of trauma and their families recover. The foundation also uses animals to teach strength and confidence. Dr. Bailey owns the ranch where animals are used to help victims of trauma learn their own strength, a place where young women can learn to dominate a creature 10 times her size and physical power. It's an exercise called joining up.
Joining up is about a certain amount of authority that they have to see you with.
It starts with a kind of psychological duel between horse and human. She has to show she is control, conveying what she wants to the horse without saying a word.
So they have to see something in your face.
Mm-hmm. As like their leader, the one in charge.
Right.
And watch what happens when she moves in silence. The horse responds by walking behind her. When she runs, the horse follows in lockstep. It is a portrait of how far this woman has traveled, from the little girl looking in the mirror and weeping, broken by terror. And if you doubt she has power over that horse, watch what happens when I try it. I'm determined to move this horse.
Okay, I'm going to think.
Using my famous iron will. First, the horse is immovable.
What's happening here?
Let's stand back.
Then the horse goes on strike. The kind of laughter that moves you forward into the rest of your life. And we noticed something in her new book. Remember, she was just 11 when she was kidnapped. She'd never even been on a date.
The only time I was asked on a date was when I was like 8 or something like that, and I was so shy. I didn't even look up when this boy was asking me to go out with him. He was like 8 too.
But she now writes, I don't feel so damaged that I'm put off by the idea of a relationship. I just don't know.
To say that you're not so damaged that you couldn't have a physical relationship is a big statement.
Yeah. And I have no way of knowing if that's really true, but I want it to be true.
And you'd have to learn step by step what that means.
Yeah.
It's a guy who's
caring, has a sense of humor, can laugh about all this stuff, loves to cook.
Have you seen anyone and you thought, could he be someone?
No. It's not that I don't think about that stuff, it's just there's no guys in my life like that.
You're not on a dating site?
No.
Just checking. Do your daughters want you to find someone?
They do, yeah. I've learned from them, actually. A lot.
What?
There can be ups and downs, and you can have one relationship and then move on, just in a normal, healthy way.
What are you afraid of now?
I still get afraid of missing out on things. Maybe I won't take that chance or, that opportunity. There's lots of things to be afraid of,
Looking for a life that will give her the final freedom from the man who imprisoned her 18 years.
If the girls say someday they want to go see him, can't bear that.
It's their decision. I would hope they would choose not to.
Do you worry at some point they'll want to see him?
I want them to make their own choices in life, and if that's something that they need to do, then...
Really? You'd be okay with that?
I wouldn't be okay with it, but I wouldn't not let them do it.
Is there a story that you tell each other collectively that begins once upon a time?
Once upon a time?
Yes. What is the once upon a... There were
three, a mom and two daughters, and they lived with a crazy person for a really long time. And then they came out of the backyard, and there was ups and there was downs, and they met a whole lot of amazing people, and they lived their life.
Their life.
Yeah, they lived their life.
Still to come, Jaycee Dugard's victory, her daughters, her plans for the future, and the things we can all learn from how she healed.
Whoa.
5 years ago, Jaycee's mother, Terry Probin, wanted to send a message to you about a morning more than 18 years ago when her little girl asked for a morning kiss.
I had been late to work 3 Monday mornings in a row, and I was focused on myself, trying to get myself out that door so I wouldn't be late for work. And I chose not to go in and kiss my girls goodbye that morning, wanting to be on time. And for 18 years, I kicked myself for not kissing that baby goodbye.
How could you have known, though? You can't beat yourself up about that.
No. But it's a good lesson. Take a minute for your kids. Do that extra thing that may be an inconvenience to you, but is important to them.
I am so lucky and blessed for all the wonderful things that I do have. Life is too short to think about all the things you don't have. I had my girls to give me strength, and my cats to keep me warm at night, and perhaps deep inside, the dim hope of seeing my mom again. Even if it is just one thing or person you have to be thankful for, that is enough.
It's hard to believe it's been 5 years since we first talked to Jaycee Dugard. I reminded her of a little list she made all those years ago in that prison backyard. A list of things she dreamed of doing but never thought she would.
See Mom. Check.
True.
Ride in a hot air balloon.
Check.
Learn to drive.
Check.
Take a train ride.
Check. Yeah,
Ooh.
I've done that.
Write a bestseller.
Ha! Double check. Hopefully.
What about learn to sail an old-fashioned sailing ship?
No, I'd really like to do that, or at least sail on one.
Regrets collect like old friends.
So before we leave, a surprise, another first for her.
I think it's gonna feel like flying. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Hi, welcome aboard. My name's Rob. I'll be the captain.
You ready? Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Always.
To see this like absolute strong woman pulling the sails up where 5 years ago when I first...
A crew member tells her about a famous saying on the boat. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails.
I'm John Quinones. Please join us next time for another edition of 2020 on ID.